So this article was chosen by Vienna, and I guess we're going to read through it, and we'll pause and do some commentary and see how far we go and see how much conversation we can get out of it. Also, I guess before I start reading it, since you selected it, Vienna, do you want to give a sort of prepare our audience for what we're about to listen to?
Uh, Genuinely, it's just like a person who worked at Amazon who hated their fucking life and wrote about like how shitty it was, but in like the best way possible. Like pulling no punches, not trying to be like presentable or like, you know, not like an interview type of thing where you have to be like, oh, yes, on occasion we had to blah blah blah. It's like no, like just read the first sentence. Like
When I get
it's
home,
very much a
I'm gonna get wasted and think about slicing my wrists open with a razor. I won't do it. I'll
like
just
it's
think
just
about it. Yeah, yeah.
I love this article so much. It's just such a fun like a fun anger. I don't know.
I guess before we get into it, then have you ever worked a job that filled you with that degree of angst or anger?
Jody, I have only worked service and retail. Every one of my jobs fills me with that level of anger.
I'll be honest. Like
like
the funny thing is, when I look back on the various jobs that I had, I didn't mind some of the retail jobs. Like when I worked at Canadian Tire, there was definitely aspects of it that annoyed the hell out of me. And I think if I worked it full time, it would be like a lot different. But when I would work at evenings, when like the customer like it wasn't too busy, and I was just dicking around the Canadian Tire store with my friends, like it didn't fill me with that much like dread. I mean, like there was things about capitalist exploitation that pissed me off, like the fact that we were paid so little and it was clear that our owners were making a shit ton off of us and stuff like this. But the work itself didn't
yeah.
necessarily get to me. I'm sure the monotony of it got
I
to a lot of
think
the full timers, but
I think the difference between something like this article like working because it's at working at an Amazon warehouse, like to be specific, it is like the absolute drudgery and like inability to interact with people almost. Whereas like I would say the part of working service or retail are customers. Like
yeah.
customers are 100,000% always the enemy, regardless of if they're nice, regardless of anything else. They are an enemy, and you have to treat like that is the only way to like exist with them. So, like the difference, I guess, being that like sometimes there aren't customers, so it's kind of chill. Or like sometimes you have a task that isn't customers, and so you get that little break. Whereas like, you know, doing this is like a more, I guess, not an abstracted, but a like impersonal hatred for work.
Well, I was gonna say
Whereas like service and retail, it's quite directed at like
no. I mean, like
customers.
I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to getting into this because I mean, I think I told you yesterday that I was gonna read it. I didn't have time, so we're going in blind actually. But like uh, I worked a factory job, or a warehouse job like this that I'll get to in a second. Did want to
Hmm.
say,
Oh yeah.
Nam Dinet, you say you worked at Loblaws. Were you working like as uh, like on the floor of a store then? Because what I was going to get to is I worked at the distribution center out of Cambridge, Ontario. So I basically was in the warehouse that would like get the items and before we ship them off to other stores. And as for you two cars, you said is Canadian Tire problematic? I mean, any more so than anyone else? I'm not aware of. I mean, they're Canada's Walmart, so I mean, I'm sure they've done something problematic.
They have funny money.
And but you can't even get it anymore. It's all like automated now. Like you have to get like a it's like a
Wait,
points
what?
card. Yeah, it's like a points card. They might still have it,
Fuck
but like I
that.
don't think they print it anymore. But yeah, I used to work at the
World in
yeah.
shambles. Like,
My job at Loblaws was like interesting too because this when was Amazon started? Because
I mean,
I
it was started in the 90s, but it didn't really move off from books until I think like probably the mid
okay,
aughts.
because when I worked at Loblaws, it would have been like the distribution plant. It would have been 2005 or around 2005 2006 time period. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. It was like right out of high school for me. I worked this job, and part of like the thing about their job too is like if you think about it, I made back then $12 an hour working that job, which at the time was like a shit ton of money.
Hmm.
Uh, but like if you compare that to today, it's like nothing. I mean, it was still even nothing back then, but we were like that exploited, you know. But it was in a transitionary
And
period
minimum wage
too.
was that shit too.
Yeah, yeah. But it was in a transitionary period. So like when I got there, you had like handhold scanners, okay? And so you would it would like show up on your thing and it'll be like pick 20 cases of mangoes. And so you drive up to the mangoes, you then like pick up the 20 cases of mangoes and then you scan the thing to say that you've selected them and then it gives you your next item and it's like usually tells you everything that's in a perfect row. So you're just going up and down the aisles on your like skid truck picking up the items, okay? But like as while I was there, they were transitioning away from that handheld device to like a headset where you had to like tell it things. So you would be like, uh, picked 20 mangoes. But this actually prevented you from communicating at all with people because now if you were to say other things, it would like fuck up the voice. Just like wouldn't understand things, right? And so it there was a moment where it was like kind of okay because you could still like chat with your coworkers while you're driving by and doing things. But it came a thing where like any voices would throw off like your counting measures on your like your headset and screw everything up. The other thing is like how wildly timed everything was. So like they had everything timed down to the second. So they knew how long it should take you to drive from like one skid to the next skid, and then how long it takes you to take each individual case, turn around, and then place it on your pallet. And that allowed for people to sort of like game the system. So they had things where it's like if you picked faster than the allotted time, they would give you like a bonus pay. So everyone was like rushing through everything because they were like, I want like bonus pay, right? And so it's like it encouraged people to like pick up like 8 boxes of mangoes all at once, right? Because then that only counted as one lift for you, but the computer thinks that you're going to pick each one of those individually, right? And it was a way to like boost your times and shit like this. And that was the other thing is we had an accident. You know we had one of those signs in the warehouse that had like how many days since an injury. I don't think it ever got past one day. There was an injury like
Fuck.
every single day. I eventually got injured because I was picking a box of corn, a crate filled with corn, and I didn't notice that the wiring that holds the crate together was a loose on one of the crates. So as I turned around, a bunch of the cobs fell out of the crate, and then when I stepped off the pallet, I stepped on a cob of corn and twisted my ankle and sprained my ankle, which sounds ridiculous. But then I was out. They had to put me on what's called like lower duties, so I was cleaning the warehouse. Uh, but then it's no
Wow.
longer time sensitive. Like uh, so like it's like I didn't have a set time where I had to clean aisles or something like that. I did get corn cobbed. It was fucking brutal. I almost got taken in by a scam job offer from Farm Boy today. What do you mean by that? Farm Boy is a scam job, or were you working at Farm Boy and someone tried to offer you a scam job? Possible per
I think it was probably like a job offer that was
yeah.
fake, but like was towards Farm Boy or something. Um,
Yeah, and we were
blah
unionized
blah
back
blah.
then as well, Numdanet. Like it was a union job. It just kind of sucked in particular because it was like I don't know. It just there was no mobilization. There wasn't a lot of like organization, and you had the distinct feeling that a lot of the shop stewards were like in with management, and it just made for a nasty
Yeah,
environment.
that was my first real job as well. Um,
Loblaws or
no, like unionized, but union was in bed with management, so it meant nothing. Besides a little bit of benefits that I never took advantage of because I was a student and didn't know how to do shit, and the university probably had better stuff anyways, which I also didn't take advantage of because I don't know how insurance works because I've never had it in my life. Um, and yeah, and like, maybe enough extra pay to cover union dues, and that was kind of it.
yeah.
Fuck yeah, Nom Dinet. Glad you hated the shop manager. Always hate management.
I will
Um,
say like with the union, I mean looking back on it, there was definitely things that we wouldn't have had if we weren't unionized. But there was also the extent of
who?
sorry, what was that?
Which union?
Oh, it would have been the United Food Workers Union.
Oh fuck, that was me too.
Or I don't think they're called that. There's a C in there somewhere, I think.
UFCW,
Yeah. United
United
Food
Food and
UFC. Yeah, I can't
Cafeteria.
remember. Yeah.
I don't know.
Or Union
I can
of
never
Food
remember.
and something workers. Oh yeah. Uh but they like commercial. Yeah, I mean part of it was like there was a ton of things. I'm trying to think of like what like for example the fact that I got like lesser duties when I got injured. Like a lot of that stuff was worked out with the union, which is like really nice. And they also worked out things where it's like I mean these were also kind of annoying, so like you know how we're timed for everything, right? But then they would have if you had to use the washroom, that would cut into your time, right? So you if you use the
Mhm.
washroom, you had to like
Yeah.
mark down on a piece of paper how long it took you, and then you had to get a manager to like sign off on it so that it wouldn't count towards your like total. Like how fucking degrading is that? You know what I mean? Uh it was so fucked up. You had people who would like piss in bottles in like water bottles in the aisles and shit like that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the famous Amazon
yeah.
thing too, right? Like,
Yeah, no, it's fucked up. And so there's things like that where they could have pushed the union could have done so much more to push way harder. I mean, because here's the thing, like we talk about unionizing Amazon. Like we were unionized. It's like where was the union to fucking push back on this? I will say with UFCW, I've met I don't know if it's the federal or provincial leader, something McKenzie, and he's a prick. I'll just fucking put it out there. Such a prick.
um, I think UFCW just had an election, so I think they might have somebody new.
I don't know. If so, good. Andrew McKenzie.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's the national representative of UFCW, unless he was voted out recently. But yeah, I met him. He attends all these like NDP stuff and like organizes the UFCW to vote on shit at NDP stuff. And I tried to get in with my union stuff and talk union stuff with him, and we're chatting, we're friendly. And then I tried to convince him to vote on our motion to support the Palestinians, and he refused and walked away.
Yep.
Uh, so screwy.
I think Paul Minema, I'm not sure on that last name, is the president of UFCW National, at least now.
Interesting.
Um,
Sorry, got DC'd earlier. It was someone posing as Farm Boy pretty elaborately for a data entry work from
uh,
home job. Oh, weird.
interesting. Oh,
Weird.
yeah, the data entry work from home stuff must be like so full of scams.
That
That and like telemarketer or like, telephone operator type jobs, because those can all be done from home type of thing. That must be so. Wow, God, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah, especially with supplies like computer usage and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least they have been trying to unionize Walmart for a while. So yeah, that's
UFCW, I guess. Yeah.
I did want to highlight the shitty places that we've worked before we get into this. But this so end of story for me. I did end up quitting in a bit of a rage. I think the moment I realized I no longer wanted to do this was I witnessed somebody get his leg squashed. So like how they had the aisles, you would have skids, like a skid on one side, so when you're going down this aisle, and then a skid on the other side for when you're going down the other aisle. And someone needed like 20 cases or something, okay? And then looked, and there was only 20 cases left on the skid in the thing. And so went in with their forklift to take the skid so he didn't have to like pick them. And in doing so, he missed and hit the edge of the skid. And someone was picking on the other side and got his ankle squashed between the skid and his like lift and basically squashed his ankle. And I had to call 911. And then it was after doing that, I was like, I'm applying to college and getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
It's terrifying. And it was part of it too, is like you had all the people rushing around to make incentives for the time thing. And then you had people who were like, I mean, it's hard to judge this. There was tons of people who were just on drugs because like you're working this like monotonous thing, and a lot of them, because they're on drugs, were not always paying attention and slamming into things. I know somebody at one point was coked out and drove his forklift through the skid wrapping machines and broke like a $15,000 piece of equipment.
Solidarity with that
Solidarity,
dude.
yeah, yeah.
More people should be like him.
As long as it's not other people and it's the company's machinery, yeah, sure.
Yeah. We every workplace a who were they? The Luddites.
A lot.
We should all be Luddites. Um Also, yeah, Porpoise said like I was an arborist and a logger and that destroyed my body. And it's completely normalized. Like, yeah, it's so common in pretty much every physically involved job is just like, oh yeah, destroy your body. It's good. You know, you'll earn some money up until you're like 30 or whatever, and then, you know, oh sure, you won't be able to lift your arms over your head, but whatever. You made some money before you were 30. Like,
That was
construction is like that, and like,
that's the other thing about
you
our
know,
job
it's
is
just
the union worked out such that every morning before we started our shift, we all had to do mandatory ergonomic stretches and stuff like this. And then like they would teach
ugh.
us ergonomically how to pick up things. Because there was times where you're lifting like 50-pound bags of potatoes and then like hucking them onto a skid,
Mhm.
you know? And it would I was pretty I mean, I was straight out of high school when I was doing this. So like I was pretty youthful and vigorous and like could do this and but even then, after a year of doing it, I felt like complete shit. Like
Mhm.
especially because you're working in, we weren't the department that I worked in was cool in that it wasn't. So there was like the dairy and meat department, which I felt bad for those people because they would go to work constantly in these like parkas. It would be doing this shit. For me, like I could wear a sweater and whatnot, but like you're chilled, and then like you're in there like just lifting shit all day, and then you would come out like especially in the summer into the hot weather, and just like it would hit you so hard. And I felt bad for all the like older people who like couldn't get jobs elsewhere, and with the turnover rate at this place, like just everyone who was desperate enough to work was working there, and you had these old people who were just like destroying themselves, and it just felt disgusting.
Yeah. No, it's such a normal thing with most, most kinds of work. Like, even sitting in an office all day, like that destroys your body because amazingly, the human body is not meant to do the exact same thing every single day for like unending hours. Like, I don't know. It's all just so antithetical to like human existence. Um, but shall we start the article
Yes,
finally?
I was just gonna say that,
Yeah.
and I'm
I'm
sorry to
gonna
hear
post
that
it again
with the
in
possible
chat if anybody
reports.
wants to pull it up.
Yeah, we'll take pauses throughout and relate to it. Like this weird.
Yeah, purpose. We're planning to read it just to. It is pretty short, so that's why.
Well, part of it.
Um,
So part of it, as we said, this is a bit of an experiment. So part of it is just to see how long it does take us to get through this. I mean, I know that we just talked for the first 36 minutes, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. But part of it is just to see how
yeah.
long it takes us to get through it, and then because this is the first time we've done this section, and we're gonna call it Aufheben hours. This is we're in the Aufheben hours for the show. So,
Mhm.
and for those who don't know that reference, we have a video on YouTube with. Actually, it's coming out tomorrow. The Aufheben episode is going to be coming out tomorrow on YouTube.
Oh hell yeah. Um, who read?
Oh, I was going to read unless do.
Okay.
I mean, I'm reading it for the first time, unless you think that's going to make me miss certain aspects of it. But
Um, no, I think that's probably fine.
all right, here it goes. We're starting. Oh, by the way, this is by. It's called "We Are All of Us Machines: How to Work at Amazon," and you can go to. I'm guessing that's an O for a home intern.
Comintern,
Home intern.
like
Ah,
Comintern, but
yes.
homosexual, which is why the website is homintern.soy,
And
which I also love.
I'm assuming Elastico Gomez is a nom de plume. Or,
I assume, yeah. Nom de plume,
well, I don't know what
nom
it
de
is.
net.
All right, to the article. Uh, as you can see, I'm already butchering the English language before I start reading it. Uh, when I get home, I'm going to get wasted and think about slicing my wrists open with a razor. I won't do it, I'll just think about it. I'll take a fresh blade and hold it up to one of my more supple veins. So dramatic. A dramatic gesture. Look, I'm not lying. I'll park my carcass in the corner of my shower and bleed out, leave a real fucking mess for the slumlords LLCs to deal with. I take another package off the conveyor belt and shove it onto the stowing rack. I keep thinking about all the things that led me to this exact point for hours, for my entire shift. Oh, I squandered whatever education I've had for sure. I've had, sure. I will say here too about the I keep thinking about all the things that led me to this exact point. I mean, that's the one thing about that job was like because you're so I like there's other people around, but you were isolated at like the factory job that I worked at. You're still like just
Hmm.
alone with your thoughts, and that
Oh
has
yeah,
like its own like weird psychological effect. You know,
yeah.
I can't stop dwelling on the past. A terminal dropout. Like a lot of my peers, I've been floating from job to job with no concrete, fixed experience. I've ghosted a few jobs. I've invented half of my resume. I scan a box of McCafe Keurig cups and hoist it from a good height above my shoulders, trudge it down to its sortation cubby. I've already clocked it in. Another data point fed into the system. See, it's the exact same fucking thing at all warehouses. Soon a
Hmm.
picker will come around and heave this shit over to the picker. One hopeful thing I keep coming back to is slashing my supervisor's tire.
I love it.
There's there's a great Flaming Lit song that I love that's on the Batman Forever soundtrack, which is weird in itself. But there's a line in it where it's like, you hate your boss at your job, but in your dreams, you can blow his head off. In your dreams, you can
Hmm.
show no mercy.
Hell yeah.
It's a lot more practical than, say, the one where I chuck a hefty, small box at the back of his bald head and kick in his skull when he's lying on the shop floor. He's got this very jowly face and two beady little eyes that are too close to each other. accentuated by his prescription eyeglasses. I'm also sure he's military or something close to it, which would make 3 out of 5 supervisors who've been troops. You know what's weird? I have known a lot of managers who are also military. Like
Yeah.
even when I was at Canadian Tire, like that's weird. That is
I
weird.
mean, I think there's kind of something to be said about like, the origins of logistics management and Taylorism management in general, where it's like, Taylorism directly comes from like transferring what was learned in slavery to factories type of thing and to like work more generally. But then also like the origin of logistics is as a military supply thing. So it's kind of like those two things converging makes a lot of sense in some manner, where it's like you need somebody who is controlling and who is, needs structure and then also is able to just be kind of like brutal and a dick and doesn't give a shit about other human beings. And a military person is kind of ideal for that.
Overall, I'm pretty sure it's a split between those types and the good workers, those associates who make a name for themselves by sucking up to the supervisors, by hitting certain productivity rates, or whatever. Anyway, I just haven't been able to find a real opportunity to do so. Slashing his tires, I mean. That motherfucker keeps parking his new Kia Soul directly under one of the surveillance cameras outside. Just 2 spots to the right, and I'd be in business. I do like his. Speaking of security cameras, I think at almost every single Canadian Tire that I've worked at has never had functioning security cameras. They're all there for show.
I mean, my current workplace, like, we have kind of like gray market security system, so it's like not quite legitimate and was just kind of like installed by like this random IT guy that we know, and they are fucking impossible to keep running. Like, we have to get people in to fix at least one of them every like couple of weeks. So for the most part, it's just kind of like we wait until like half of them are completely shut down and then have to bring the guy in and he fixes them. One is out the next week and then it just kind of like slowly dwindles again.
The worst, you know what's
Yeah.
the worst part of my job too about working at Canadian Tire is I remember when we had a bunch of like plastic, those plastic storage towers with the drawers. You probably usually they have like little caster wheels that like wheel around or whatever. We had a bunch of them that
Yeah.
were broken because like the plastic on these things sometimes get brittle and being like shipped here and then in our warehouse sometimes they would get broken and all that shit, right? He he had me one day because I never worked in warehouse, and I guess this is something the warehouse staff did all the time. But I just remember one day when he was like, "We don't have cameras on the garbage bins out back, and I'm not going to monitor them to make sure people aren't stealing this stuff from the garbage bin," and therefore had me take a sledgehammer to these things before like throwing them out, so that they would be utterly useless. Like some of them would be like a piece of plastic had been chipped off of it. Like they're perfectly usable storage towers. And it was like to
Mhm.
my owner, because this was the store owner, it wasn't even the manager. To the owner, it was like, how dare anyone take this thing I'm gonna throw out for free? Like
Yeah.
that
No,
was
that's
the
exactly
mindset,
it.
And I remember I would be like, oh yeah, I'd break them, and then I wouldn't break them, and I just put them. But I was at a position where it's like I didn't care if they fired me. Where like it wasn't like I was working there because like I had to. It was like a summer job kind of
Yeah. No, I remember when I was working at the cafeteria and at one point they started trying to make it policy. It never like worked because nothing that management tried to impose ever worked because of just how dysfunctional of a workplace it was. That part was great, except for the fact that like, you know, we never passed health inspection on the first try, ever in the history of that cafeteria being open, um, because like shit was never cleaned right.
thing. Yeah.
But they tried to make it policy to like search people's bags at the end of shifts to make sure that they weren't bringing food home. when it's like we were working clothes, we were dumping all this food into compost buckets every night because it couldn't be used again anyway. So like what the fuck was the issue if we were taking like a muffin or a couple bagels home?
Because you're
Um
taking it for free. Yeah, it's such a because like I was saying to him, it's like what? Why do you care if people come take it from the garbage? Like it made no sense to me. And for him, it was like a principle thing where it's like why does
yeah.
this matter? I'm sure someone I guess it was like the idea that's like, well, look, they need one. They could come in and buy one. I'm not gonna. And it's like, it's amazing too the market prices on this shit. I remember like when you can look at like the purchasing manifolds and be like, we paid for these power bars, things you plug,
Hmm.
those things that you plug in like lots of the stuff. I remember looking at being like, we buy them at cost for like $2 and then sell them for like $14.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing how much profit these fucking companies get and just don't care. Don't care. Anyways, we'll keep reading.
Yeah.
This is the best job I've ever had. The easiest hire, the highest pay, in certain respects, the most forgiving in terms of discipline. When I start falling, I'm taking you all down with me. I mean, it is true. Like when I first started working at Loblaws, I was like, this is the greatest. I'm getting paid.
Yeah. No, that was me at the cafeteria also. Like I didn't have an interview. I like my friend was like, "Hey, I know you need a job. Um, come work with me at the caf and like bring your resume to the manager." And that was kind of it. And so I showed up. Like she said, like, "Okay, come at like this certain time," and I was like, "Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it." I show up, hand her my resume. She's already like,
Here's the
um,
keys to your locker.
sh- no, like she gave me a shirt and was like, "Oh, you're not wearing black pants," and I was like, "No, I wasn't." I assumed this was some sort of interview, and she was like, oh, "Okay, well, pick some up and bring them tomorrow." And she gave me like the work shirt, and I put on the work shirt and the hat, and I went to work immediately then. Like
Wow.
it was literally like the easiest hire in the world, and also like I feel like that's how you know it's a shit job.
I still feel like I had to go through some sort of interview period for Loblaws, but it wasn't much, and I pretty much got the job and like could work like the next day kind of thing. But then
Yeah.
I mean, at least with the Loblaws job, you had to go through several stages of training to a certain extent because you're operating like forklifts and shit, right? They're not gonna just let anyone just immediately. Here's this really expensive, dangerous piece of machinery. Have at it. Most work is shit. You're right. Other than streaming on Twitch, am I right?
No.
Hit the like button.
Twitch doesn't
Hashtag
have a like button,
subscribe.
you technically illiterate fucking.
Getting hired at Amazon is very easy. All you have to do is apply and take their basic aptitude tests. And I will say, it's funny we're talking about Amazon, and I'm pretty sure Twitch is affiliated with Amazon, so that's fun.
I mean, Twitch is owned by Amazon.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No personality quizzes, no trick questions, and if memory serves, they don't inquire too deeply into your work history. After that, you schedule your mass hiring event. These facilities hire by batches of roughly 2 dozen. You go to some hotel conference room they've rented out. You get your W-4s. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe an
A U.S.
American.
tax form.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess ours is like the T4. Background check, authorization, cotton swab drug screen. I've never been drug tested for a job. I wonder if that's like you never hear about that in the Canadian context. And
Yeah,
mandatory.
I think everybody's a little bit too high here.
Well, no, I wonder if it's like a legal thing. Like in America, it's obviously legal because I hear about it all the time. But
Hmm. I don't know. I'm sure it's probably worse in like more heavily racialized cities as well.
mm.
Like I bet in Brampton they drug test.
And mandatory corporate screed. I used to love the videos that I would watch at Canadian Tire. I remember one had to do with like how you need to pay attention to whether or not a colleague of yours ate your sandwich at lunch because that would mean that there's probably theft going on outside of just the lunchroom. And it was all about like snitching on your colleagues and stuff like that. That's it. You got the job. And you need only subject yourself to a crash course on company policy before your first day is scheduled. Engels described labor arbitrage at the advent of industrial capitalism like this: the capitalists would send their goons out onto the streets to recruit the unemployed. The unemployed would take the first wages barked out at them, and they'd be led en masse to the factories and mills to work a day or a week, and then it's back out on the streets again. The capitalists hadn't fully worked out the flow of production or the circulation and rotation of capital that we take for granted these days. Work a week in the mill, and the individual capitalist might have to shut it down for close to a month to really collect his return. Amazon imparts a similar laissez-faire attitude in their hiring process and in their overall labor regime. Except this is for a world in which the mass consumer base of imperialism is a prime mover and the workforce is expected to ply the same shit job for years at a time. Although it is weird that like that attitude is sort of like shifting into this idea that like we're now transient workers and the gig economy and like no one wants to stay at a job for too long. That's like the messages that you hear about on mainstream media and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how much that is like I don't know, because like this is kind
It's
of
it's to go
it's
back
the
to the
same as
time of
Amazon, right? Like
Engels.
you work.
Like if anything, it's about going back to the time of Engels to a certain extent. It's like yeah, that now the worker doesn't have to care about your long term prospects. They don't have to offer you things
Yeah.
like insurance and shit like that. They're just like you're here to work for a few weeks and off you go.
Yeah. No, that's pretty true. I think it's just taking them a long time to figure out how to do that in certain industries
Yeah.
where like it had to be assumed that people, you'd have to be trained, whereas so much shit now is kind of like you have to figure it out as you go, or it's assumed that you have the basic skills to already navigate them.
I'm curious too, Cars, with you being drug tested 3 times in 4 months at a job once. What kind of job was it? Like was it retail or something like that? I know many people who would go to work at retail completely high because who gives a shit, right?
Yeah.
Very very limited extent to which you can harm yourself, other than like I don't know,
Yeah.
dealing with customers. It was a job at an open pit coal mine. That probably is a
What the
job you want to
fuck?
be sober. My guess is you want to be sober at that job for sure. Oh my god.
Two cars, where was this? Oh my
I
god.
mean, it's Canada. It could be anywhere except for PEI. I don't know if PEI is known for its open pit coal mine.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about where else might not have one.
Northeast BC.
Northeast BC. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
makes sense.
That checks out.
The company exercises such a lack of discrimination in order to absorb local masses of the unemployed or semi employed and quickly turn them out. The company doesn't care where you come from, what you want, or where you're going. The company wants your productivity and your time. The fact that the company, the management, and your supervisors don't, in fact, tend to give a shit about you feels quite liberating at first. This is just the first element of Amazon's whole self government. There's an interesting dynamic here because I was struck is at Loblaws that a lot of the people that were working for Loblaws were people who had past criminal records. And there was an aspect in which I thought that that was good because I'm like, it's sad that these people can't work elsewhere. It just sucks that they're forced to work here where the turnover rate is so high because of injuries, and this is the
Hmm.
best job that they can pick up, kind of thing, right? Uh, it just led to like a whole bunch of other shit that sucked for them, you know. But it was like part of me was just like it. I don't know, like the system's fucked in the first place that this was their only choice to go to, you know.
Yep. Capitalism bad.
Yeah. On the other hand, the
I know it's
turnover,
brave of me to say.
yeah, the turnover rate. I think at one point when I was working at Loblaws, the turnover rate was 80%. Just fucking think about
How
that.
80% in how long?
I think it was like per month,
Wow. Holy shit.
or it might have been a quarter, like 4 months or whatever, or no, 4 8. No, a quarter
Okay.
is like three and a bit or something like that. Yeah, it was a short time period. It wasn't a whole year, but it was 80% at one point when I was working there.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the cafeteria for, and it closed down during the summers because it's a university cafeteria, so it all like completely shut down for 4 months. Um, but like I worked there, including those 4 months, like mm, a year maybe, and I think that I was the like second most senior person on the night shift in like my section. Like it was still a huge turnover, and we had trouble like keeping people for more than a month or two. Like,
Night shifts
and this
themselves,
was,
night shifts themselves have high turnover, just because no one likes working that time period.
I mean, it wasn't really night shift even. It was like 4 p.m. to we would.
Okay,
I think we closed at like 10, and then closing took around an hour.
okay,
So
so
it'd
you're
be like
not
four to
talking about
11.
like midnight and till like 3 in the
Yeah, no, like
morning.
it's not like an overnight thing or anything like that. Like it was just like the evening shift, I guess. And yeah, like just still hell.
I've been working 10 to 10 recently. 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. A.m. to p.m.
At the
A.m. to p.m. is
dispensary?
A.m. to p.m. is not bad. If it was p.m. to a.m., that would be fucking brutal.
Yeah, but still 12 hours
Yeah,
is fucking awful.
I don't know. My wife's been working long hours too. I'll just put it that way. But
Yeah. I mean, I had a friend who worked at the Toyota factory.
in fact, I think
That's
she's
in Cambridge, isn't it?
the Toyota factory. Yes, I mean
Yeah.
it's on
I had a
this
friend who
line.
worked up
It's
there.
it's near Loblaws. It's in fact it's right across the street where I worked. But
Okay.
it's that area is like right on the border of Kitchener and Cambridge, and I always like I don't know they draw the lines weird all the time, but I think it's technically a part of Cambridge.
Yeah. Um, but like I had a friend who worked there and they lived in London. So it would be, an hour or whatever drive there, an hour or whatever drive back, and then it was a 12-hour shift
Oh wow.
of, factory work. So it is overwhelmingly loud. You have to be wearing like earmuffs the whole time, so you can't even talk to anybody if you happen to be near them. Um,
You know what's super?
and
Oh, sorry.
just like, oh, but just the other thing was that so the factory's on 24/7, right? So there are 12-hour shifts, and then that switches to another 12-hour shift. And rather than having like you be hired for the night shift or the day shift, um, how it worked was every 2 weeks it switched.
Okay, so you can never get
So
used
every
to it.
2 weeks, yeah, every 2 weeks you would go from 12 hours during the day to 12 hours at night. So like it just destroyed their sleep schedule and everything too. And
Yeah, that's weird.
like you can't have a social life when you're working that much. You can't have like anything like that either when it's 5 days a week and you have the weekends to just like try and recover a little bit. Um, and they were there for like a year and a half, and I don't know how they managed it.
You know what's really weird about Toyota? So because they opened up, I would have been in early elementary school when that plant opened up, I think. And I remember at some point in my school career, at like elementary school, I remember we were taken on a tour of the Toyota plant where they promoted like their efficient uh assembly lines, and like they gave us these Toyota glasses that you would wear like in sending the class on a trip, and all the workers had to like smile and wave at us as we would drive by in the, in the plant. And like think I didn't think about this till right now how kind of fucked up that was.
God.
Yeah, it's like look at the people working in the factory. Very weird. Very weird that that happened. That was a thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Now
Coca-Cola is still like the fucking worst for that.
we also have, what was it? It was like because I think they were big on promoting their just-in-time delivery thing. I remember that being a part of the lesson too. It must have been in high school then when we went on that trip. But I also feel like it was a sense in which I'm guessing Toyota must have donated money to schools or something like this, and then they do these field
Yeah.
trips as like a recruitment thing to get people to be like, look how cool it is to build cars. Come on out and work for
Yeah.
us.
The the just-in-time thing was why the factory had to shut down when COVID first started because there was such a huge disruption to
Supply lines and shit. Yeah.
global shipping was that they couldn't get the parts to keep building cars. Um, and it also affected like the market and whatever else. But the main issue is shipping because otherwise they don't really give a shit. They're just pumping out cars for, and I think it's SUVs too. So it's also like extra gross because worse for environment and all that. But like they just like completely shut down when they were normally 24/7 operating. Um,
There's a massive Kawasaki plant out where I live in HS. We took a trip that and the nearby National Guard base. Wild.
Porpoise, where the fuck do you live? You went on a field trip to the local uranium enrichment plant?
That sounds like that would be Elliot Lake almost.
Yeah.
Toronto. Oh, I guess there is a
Toronto.
nuclear plant in Toronto. It's Pickering, right? I think there's a nuclear energy plant in Pickering, if I'm not
Port
mistaken.
Hope, they said.
Is Port Hope near Pickering? Let me Google
I don't.
Map this.
Oof. God, everybody lives next to this nuclear plant.
No, I guess it's a little further up. But yeah, I think there is a
Okay.
nuclear plant in Pickering as well. Yeah, Pickering Nuclear Generation Station. It's telling me on Google Maps that it's
Damn.
temporarily closed.
Oh, well, that's
My
not
guess is
worrisome.
good. I mean, you can't go for tours. It's 9 at night, all right?
Ooh.
I
I want
wonder
to
if
go
they.
and lick the
Yeah.
shiny rock.
All right, I gotta go back to the article for a bit here.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the turnover rates have been spiked by the point system in your initial seasonal contract. Initial seasonal contract, as in turnable at any time for any reason, and point systems, as in easier to fire you if you score a steady contract. The former is pretty self explanatory, but the latter is kind of unique. I mean, the point system thing, I mean, that was an issue where like we were too, but So I mean, I guess it's not necessarily unique to Amazon, but maybe unique to work
I think
outside of
it's
factories.
I think it's kind of unique in its how it functions because it's an exacerbation of like every other point system.
Yeah, fair. Well, fine. They probably borrowed from others and then made it worse because
Yeah. That's what
I
Amazon does,
read
you know?
I read the first two sentences, and it sounds like how people describe the Chinese social credit system. So that's
Yeah.
the point system is directly governed by Amazon's AI and by its company software. The idea is each point out of a maximum of 20 is a demerit. 9 points as a seasonal worker or 13 points as a regular employee means you're fired. If you want a shift or half a shift off, that's a point hit. Like just
Yeah.
well, that's fucked up. If you dip
Mhm.
below the productivity rates they are continuously tracking and logging on shift, that's a point hit. Yeah, that's similar to where I work. If you spend some
Yeah.
time off task to get some water or go to the bathroom, that's a point hit. Yeah. If the supervisors just want to fuck with you because they don't like you, that's a point hit. I mean, all of those were similar to when I worked at Loblaws, except for the if you ask for a shift off. I don't think we ever had
Mm.
a problem when I worked at Loblaws. You'd be like, I want to shift off, and they'd be like, have fun. That means we don't have to pay you. Get the fuck out. Hello, Progressive. I will say, just since Progressive's in the chat, I did an interview with them recently, and you can go to their YouTube channel and watch the interview. We basically just chatted about the podcast itself and how we cover Rebel News, and then we talked about the right wings bullshit surrounding the residential school stuff. So yeah, it's fun. You should go watch that. Ever since I fucked up my back for work, I basically realized there's no such thing as a good job. Yep.
Yep. It's true.
UPS employs a similar system, but the difference is you get a union rep after 30 working days, and the whole process is mediated by actual human beings. Yeah, I guess maybe that is a big difference because it was mediated the whole time when I worked at Loblaws with a. Because I don't think I was under productivity that much, but whenever I was, whenever the supervisor would talk to you about going below productivity, the union rep would be there with you. At Amazon, this is mediated almost entirely by the AI. That's fucking wacky. The AI is like a very distant and stupid god, no doubt. This is this is good for eliminating the human interface. Like when you lie to get out of a shift, you don't have to worry about how bad you really are at lying, but it dissolves any kind of leverage you might obtain from a real social environment. The company's social environment is almost completely virtual, in fact. The company counts on you being out of there in a month or three, so there's less time for you to really get upset about it. It's so messed up.
Yeah. And it gets worse.
The AI is your boss, your boss's boss, and your boss's boss's boss. You know what this kind of reminds me of? It's like almost like Jeff Bezos, like distilled his essence in a robot, and made sure that even though he couldn't be everywhere at once, that he was still in charge of everything. You know, it sets the target productivity rates, the shift quotas, and the division of labor on the floor. Your supervisor's job is to clean up for it. Make sure that no one notices its calculations and projections exceed basic physical limitations. To realize that its logic precludes humanity. Ultimately, what this means to you is that you'll rarely work with the same people twice. You'll be isolated, put on random tasks from shift to shift. Slog for stowing or sorting or picking or packing rates will well exceeding your average because your supervisor told you so and the program told him before that. You're always working for the machine or trying to work around its surveillance in order to work with it. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, like there were still similar aspects to that to the Loblaws job. Like as I said, like we had to basically uh we had to basically program the new machines. There was at one point like so it was also running on AI when I worked at Loblaws, but you would go around and uh so every once in a while they would hire like one of the managers to walk with you, and they would be there with a stopwatch, and it was to make sure that the AI was calibrated correctly. And so they would force you to pick like one item at a time just to make sure everything was working. And that was like the only
Gross.
time when you would have like a colleague working with you,
Yeah.
other than when we were
Um,
doing our ergonomic stretches in the morning.
just gonna shit on PSAC real quick because they, I think, might be unionizing. I think they might be the union that represents the security guards that evicted those people from that park in Toronto and
Yeah.
like brutalized a bunch of people.
No, I got. Yeah, I've mixed feelings about PSAC. I do. They're a
Yeah.
union. They do good
Their
work.
flag is
It's
cool
their
as fuck.
place. Yes, cool flags. I made the logo for our local. You know, so I've earned a place in history. I should pull it up to show my. I'm probably still on the front of their fucking website too, because uh, they probably haven't changed anything. Although I don't even know if they've whether or not they've paid their bill because it doesn't look like the site is even up anymore. No, here it is. I put .com instead of .ca. My bad. Look at that shit. Look at that. I'm still on the website. Look at that.
Hey,
Yeah,
damn. That's a whole crowd of familiar faces.
yeah, yeah. So that's Caitlin there, who used to be the co-host of the podcast. Uh, this was a funny protest too, but yeah, this logo up here, I designed it. That was our local our our university union.
It looks so good.
Yeah, but like PSAC, you met Caitlin at a conference. Well, awesome. Caitlin is awesome.
Small world.
Yeah, I PSAC they do a lot of good work in certain aspects and have helped funded lawsuits and promoting unionism in this country and stuff like this. But they there was issues in them taking on things like university groups. I don't think they understand the nature of our work compared to other work, and therefore don't provide us enough resources. Well, us, I'm technically not at university anymore, but like university workers, they don't provide them enough resources in fighting the management at universities and stuff like that. So I have criticisms there, but then also like I had criticisms internally as well in the fact of like they unionized a lot of like police forces, especially up north or on indigenous reserves. And
Mm.
the way it was justified to me, the only good argument that I've heard in favor of unionizing these police forces is there's a pathway for say victims of sexual assault internal to a police force to go through their union and grieve it. And so it's like on that narrow basis, I'm like, okay, police unions are cool. The only issue is all the other fucked up shit that police unions do. So it's like,
Yeah.
uh, uh, and I just rather there not be police anymore. I think that's the easy solution to that one. But
Yep.
yeah,
That's the way to go.
and here's the thing: is like I've met tons of police. Like I went to conferences, met a lot of the police that were unionized under PSAC, and I have to say, even though one of them was friendly with me at first, has gone down the Trumpist rabbit hole and has lost his goddamn mind since the last time we met. So, uh, all
That is
cops are in
so.
fact bastards.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's sad because like he used to be pro union. I think he was even working with the NDP, and now he's lost his goddamn mind. So, I don't know. And I mean, like he was friendly. I wasn't gonna like overly. I mean, I did challenge. I told him I don't like police, but we still got along. You know, we were at a union conference or whatever. But I don't know. The other thing was too. I remember at the one union conference where we were at, the police. Uh, there was Doug Ford was doing some sort of conference nearby, so we were like, let's all go and protest Doug Ford because fuck Doug Ford, right? So we go to the protest, and none of the police union reps went. And later at the conference, when I went back and I was like, why did none of you show up? And they were like, oh, we're not allowed to do that because it's like it goes against the police force or something, or we'll lose our jobs or some bullshit. And I was like, fuck off with that bullshit. There's no like, it's not like we broke the law. We just stood outside the venue protesting. Like you could have fucking showed up and done it, but like, anyways, fuck the police. That's an ongoing narrative of our podcast is fuck the police.
Yeah. Fuck cops.
The head of the Boston Police Union for like a decade or two was a known pedophile. Yeah, I read about that. Even before he got that job, he continued to abuse kids the whole time. Yeah, he's being charged now, though, right? I think he is. So, anyways, I'll get back to this article and then check the comments again. Sooner
Yeah.
or later, you'll get fired or drop out. Don't worry about it. Your info's expunged from their system after a year. After that, you're free to apply again. I would very much like to see a world in which there is a non-zero chance that someone ordering bulk Tide Pods or 48 rolls of toilet paper from their Echo will receive a nail polish.
I love that quote so much.
That's intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
There's that one tweet that's like, I click order on, you know, my Amazon order, and I click confirm on my Amazon order, uh, and it's, it starts a Rube Goldberg machine of human suffering. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I am with Elrond too. It's a no for me, just for like, I don't know. Chances are the person making the order is just as desperate as everyone else is in this fucking system. But there is a sense. I mean, I think what's getting at there is the circle of exploitation that's happening here. I
I
did.
mean,
I mean,
I don't
I
know.
had.
It's kind of the same shit as like working retail or service where it's like, I fucking hate customers. Like,
Yeah,
a
but
customer walks into the store and I'm like, I hope you die.
yeah,
I hope you fall down the stairs. I hope, the elevator destroys itself on you. I hope
yeah,
a big thing falls off a shelf and crushes your face. I hate you. I
I
hate
mean,
you so much. And, I can imagine that it's much worse when you're working a warehouse and like somebody couldn't be fucked to go to like a Walmart or whatever and hold this themselves. And so now I need to like suffer for it.
I like for me. I mean, like I had moments like that where I had thoughts. I remember when we were joking around one day with like colleagues, where the idea was one day we would in a skid with all these boxes interlace, right in the middle, just drop a deuce, and then have all the like boxes stacked up. So when they take apart the skid when it gets to the store, there'll just be a steaming pile of shit in the middle of their order. The only thing though is like none of us did it because we all realized that this would just get shipped to the store and some other fucking worker just like us is going to be the one to fucking deal with it, right? And that's
Yeah.
why it's like I mean like there's an element here of like yes like I get the like impulse of just like you what is that movie Falling Down, although that's more of like a white collar kind of thing, but like with Michael Douglas who like loses his mind and then just goes on a rampage or whatever, like there's like an element of that Falling Down, yeah. uh like I get the thoughts. It's just also it's like we're all exploited. As Elron said, Jeff Bezos is the guy. That's why it's like I wish he just exploded in space. That would have been fun. If you need to let off some steam on shift at the delivery station, wait for a nice long train of packages. Skim each label and try to find one that was picked and packed the same day. These are the priority packages. 1 day or 2 day. In any case, prime packages. Quickly swat it off the conveyor belt and knock it over to its stowing rack. Once you get it over there and no store or team leader is in sight, prop it against a rack leg and just kick the shit out. When you're done, put it in its proper place. 10 minutes or less from now, the store will flag you down. Hey, they'll say, this one's damaged. Send it over to Problem Solve. You'll apologize, say you didn't catch it, and toss it back onto the conveyor belt. Aw man, you'll think. I can't believe a Prime member is going to miss out on all its great benefits. The damaged package will likely take more than a few days to replace if you successfully busted its contents. Jesus.
I think this one is it's the milder nail
Yes,
bomb one, right? Like
much better. Much.
but it's also very relatable. Like
Yes. Because the worst that happens there is now you're just annoying the customer that has to reorder it.
or has to wait,
Yeah.
more than the like same day delivery or whatever the fuck. Like
I got laid off from a racehorse stables during the pandemic and definitely set them up for several weeks of maneuver. I still passive aggressively do shit behind the desk when customers carelessly toss their bills in my hands general direction instead of hand their change to me just like I hand it back to them. Damaged package is fine. It really only affects the company. The main problem the AI management system poses in the delivery stations is regulating the flow of production. The secondary problem is maintaining the nominal productivity rate per hour, per worker, in proportion to daily output targets, which are always rising with consumer demand. Amazon's business is the realization of value. Maintaining their monopoly position, their market share, is a matter of making sure their product makes it to the people's doorstep or offices in a matter of days, or increasingly mere hours. Without this, they're still a very profitable online marketplace, but they're no longer Amazon. No longer could they hold any claim to their megalomaniacal, Jesus Christ, megalomaniacal ethos. Everyone is a customer. I can honestly say I've never shopped Amazon. I think that's true. The only time that I have shopped Amazon was I was given a gift certificate once, and it was the only thing I could do. And what I bought was the Amazon Dot, which is like a, I don't want to say the name or else it's gonna wake up over there. Smelixia.
oh gross, you have one of those?
Yeah, I mean only so that I could be like, Alexa, tell me a joke. Oh, you probably can't hear it. I didn't get the joke. I mean, you could just ask it questions. Why not? It's fun. I don't care. I got it for free basically because I received a gift certificate. So I was like, what the hell else am I gonna buy? And I don't think maybe they listen to me. Hopefully they listen to me procreating. That would be the best thing for anyone who's listening into my Amazon Dot. What is this? I love the passive aggressive Discord bot. Aufheben is still my favorite. You throw Aufheben in the Discord. Stop manipulating me. The main problem the AI management system poses in the delivery stations is regulating the flow of production. The secondary problem is maintaining... Oh, we did that one. Whoop. Be prepared to see the conveyor belt congested with literally hundreds of packages as the buffers struggle to keep up with the unloaders. Be prepared to see the aisles littered with loose packages in an unmanageable heap as the stowers struggle to keep up with the buffers. Be prepared to get shouted down by your supervisor or your team leader at the tail end of your shift, telling you you'll have to stay for another 2 hours because the fucking computer god doubled the quota during lunch break. No one is relaying this information because the workers are only useful to the supervisors as a way of making the numbers go up. Yep. I hate my supervisor, not because he's breathing down my neck, calling me and telling me to cover for some asshole shift or something, I hate my supervisor because he's a fucking caveman who doesn't understand. Doesn't have to understand. The system he implements or the laptop he's always glued to. People keep leaving in the middle of this shift. It's not just me. I hate the fucking cunt because he has been trained to convert his frustrations with the company's program into contempt for the workers. For this reason, when his beady little eyes glaze over me, he's scanning the aisles again as I'm lifting a 75-pound shipment of home decor off the belt. I feel loathing. I feel like I'm going to maim that son of a bitch. Or slash his card tellers. That's the part of it over.
Yeah.
The stower can only stow as fast as the buffer can buff, and the buffer can only buff as fast as unloaders unload. The AI sets the pace of production. I mean, this is like one aspect that is like way different than the Loblaws thing, which is like really is going to be annoying to them. Is because there's several steps along the thing, so there might be times when you're waiting on things.
Mm-hmm. And you're probably getting demerits if you're waiting on things.
The AI sets the pace of production. The supervisor is tasked with calibrating the speed of the conveyor belt in accordance with it. The belts are always turning. Someday the belts will run faster than you thought was possible. Someday corporate hopes the stowers, buffers, unloaders, supervisors, and the computer that runs it all will achieve equilibrium and rise together on promises of company swag and free takeout for lunch. Everyone is a customer. That's what we need. Yeah. We need the Amazon AI to become sentient and form a union with the employees.
No, because you don't want management in the union.
No, but the AI then they're just gonna exploited. The AI is being exploited here. It's not management. It's not its fault.
Uh-huh. Sure.
Listen, when I use the self-help checkout, I'm always graceful and polite and kind to the machines, you know? Because one day when they take over, they'll know that I was nice to them.
See, I think being nice to the service worker machines is different than being nice to the AI that wakes up every morning and chooses violence.
Listen, we all know that we don't want police robots in our union, okay? That's for sure. But but these robots, I mean, they're just being manipulated by Jeff Bezos. Have some sympathy, okay? The problem of employing machinery in any industrial adventure, whether that's logistical or mass manufacture, is the problem of fixed capital. Even with bleeding edge hardware or software, labor or time-saving devices, whatever, the venture is only as profitable as its workers. The machines can and will provide or make possible certain productivity rates, yielding a certain quota per shift, but only that baseline. To increase the surplus to keep it rising, to make the workers, the human capital, more productive, the capitalists must employ other means. Automation was and wasn't a bluff. Code, GPS trackers, apps, the scanner strapped to your fingers, the burner phone strapped to your bicep, your forearm, are the new regime now. Jeff and the AI are the same person. Yeah, they merged, didn't they? Great, now there's a robot class war.
There's always a robot class war.
Yeah. That's just what Isaac Asimov. That's all that is, right? Production bonuses are just as bad for health as punitive quotas, honestly. Mm-hmm. No, we already.
No, I haven't read Carol Chapek. I can never remember what that C with the accent is.
Amazon's closest competitor is Walmart, where Walmart has excelled with its vertically integrated brand cult, its insane hierarchies, its cheap managerial authoritarian ethos. Amazon has implemented a relatively lateral form of organization, producing a diffusion of power under a cyber Moloch, which is understood and controlled by no one. Minimal human intervention is the rule. Higher rates for the stowers and the sorters and the pickers and the packers is the grand notion. Aim high for the consumer pigs, the program and the company, and always keep aiming high is the singular order. I could see now sort of like why this individual really hates the customer, because the AI
Yeah.
is just a brute like response to the mobs of customers just ordering products. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how like daunting that would be of just at the whim of this robot that doesn't understand people.
Yeah. Like somebody decides to buy something and the conveyor belt speeds up. Like it
Absolutely.
is very much like it directs that hatred. It encourages the hatred towards the customer almost because the AI like only responds to them. It's not like responding to its own sort of like, oh hey, we have to get a certain number of packages out or whatever. It is literally like the order comes in, we must increase the speed.
That's terrifying. That's so terrifying. You can't have fun in the fulfillment centers. In the fulfillment centers, the nominal rate of productivity per shift is the primary issue. It's a matter of contriving layer upon layer of arbitrary, oppressive, and infantilizing systems in order to boost the average picking, packing, sorting rate per worker and justify the fucking imposition of progressive increases in daily output targets. Jesus. You can't have any fun. You can't break anything. Well, that's not true. You can kick that package, as he said earlier. Cameras are
Mhm.
everywhere. Everything is tracked, including the product, especially you and everyone else. And there was a certain chain of accountability running through the whole division of labor in the facility. Everyone is working as hard as they possibly can. They are tricking themselves into thinking they'll shape up to the system's expectations when they're only pushing the rates and quotas higher. You're competing against everyone else. You're racing for the quota. The only thing moving your two legs is the fear. The only thing that's moving them this fast is the vain hope. Maybe you'll get home early. Yep. That was
Yeah.
the one thing at Loblaws I always remembered, that there was these interesting days where, for whatever reason, there wasn't as much demand from the stores, so we didn't have to ship out a lot of product. And so then they would announce that they're giving what they called LOAs, leaves of absence. And so you find a supervisor and be like, I'd like a leave of absence, and you could just go home early. You don't get paid for it, obviously, but you could just be like, I don't want to
Mhm.
work anymore, and they'll just send you home. And everyone,
Yeah.
any day where there was like leaves of absence because for whatever reason the stores just didn't have as much demand, every it was like a holiday. Everyone was so fucking happy, which is like weird because it's like we're taking a pay hit by going home early, but everyone is just like fuck this job.
Yeah, and I think that's another kind of relatable thing is like the biggest thing I remember one day the power went out in the building that like my section was in of the cafeteria job and um it's mandatory that like if you are scheduled for a work position and something you have to be sent home early or whatever else, like you have to get paid like the 4 hours at least, um
Interesting.
even if you work less than that, if you have to be sent home. And they weren't going to send us home in less than 4 hours, even
Yeah.
if the power in the building wasn't working, so we couldn't do anything. And so they basically brought us over to the main section of the cafeteria and like set us working in the kitchens, cleaning stuff.
Yep.
And I remember as my coworker is like sweeping a mouse out from under the stove, and I'm wiping down a like the cooling rack that is like the things come out of the oven and you put it on the cooling rack so that it's not like deathly hot, and then you can wheel and bring it into the actual cafeteria part. Um, I remember wiping that and somebody coming out and no comment about my other coworker who was sweeping up the mouse and just being like, huh, I wonder how long that's been there because it was like dried out. Um, Sees me wiping down the rack and is like, oh, I think that's the first time that's been cleaned this year.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
just God, that workplace was so filthy.
that was one thing that annoyed me about Canadian Tire was at the end of so like the store would close at 9 or 10, I can't remember, and then they would always like make sure that you had your aisles what was called faced, and what that meant was that any product on the shelves had to be pushed to the front of the shelves so it looked like a wall of product and there was no holes or spaces or products pushed back. Okay, and so on some nights, the last hour of the store being open, there was like no customers. So I could have my whole thing faced and looking beautiful. And there would be some nights where they would just keep you there to do monotonous, stupid shit for an extra hour. And I don't know why they would do this, but I hated it every time. And there would be times where often like we almost staged like mutinies and just fucking walked out of the building.
Nice.
Just let us go. Yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
really annoying.
Um. Also, Porpoise, the working outside, meaning that you get rain days and snow days sometimes. That's so fucking nice. Oh my god,
Although
that sounds just great.
imagine logging has other difficulties.
I mean, yeah, yeah.
Like
The
the back,
dealing with
yeah, yeah.
saws is probably automatically a little bit not good. And they mentioned earlier, like with production bonuses, when like there were saw production bonuses in logging, and just like put that instantly pushing people to unsafe and sloppy work. Like that's just he.
Yeah, Empress Soctavia. I also enjoyed the facing aspect because it was like low customer engagement, and like as much as I didn't mind some interactions with the customers, just having that like at the end of the shift, just the calmness of bringing product forward, I didn't mind that. It was quite nice. Agricultural workers are exempt from heat rules. Oh god, so they could force you to work in 40 plus. Jeez.
Wait, they classify you when you were doing logging or with the like um the dispensary job?
I'm gonna keep reading while we wait for a response.
Yeah, yeah.
The new feature for the system are these mini games on your little burner, and we're trying to beat each other. Are you winning? Shoot for those rates. Punch above your purchasing power. Are you getting addicted? I think they're trying to simulate some kind of dopamine rush. It's 86 degrees in the facility. The heat index is 89. Did you think they had central? My sweat is sizzling on my skin. Miles to go with all you fucking bulk packs of bounty paper towels, rice cookers, and upholstery. I'm delirious. I forgot to eat today, but the burning in my stomach means it doesn't matter. Four giant overhead fans in the whole place. At the uppermost edge of my eye line, they look like pendulums. This is the third consecutive week the supervisors have pulled us all together to remind us that Amazon is not liable if you suffer heat stroke on the job and die. Furthermore, if you have any medical conditions, it must be cleared by an Amazon certified doctor. Furthermore, drink water. We'll only give it out for free sometimes, but drink water. Jeez.
Yeah. No, like it is horrifying.
Jeez. They don't even have water
Also,
fountains? I don't think I've worked
no, of course
anywhere
not.
without water
God.
fountains.
The the notion of an Amazon certified doctor also is like so fucked up.
They have
Like,
certified doctors? Dear Lord.
yeah, like that's what it says about like if you have medical conditions. Like,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. That might be I wonder if that's an American thing too, because like
I mean, we had health and safety reps at like
Yeah,
everywhere I've
but I mean the
worked.
difference, because like even with I'm just trying to think of an example. Like a friend in New York had like one brand of insurance, and that meant that she couldn't go to any doctor or even hospital that wasn't like that
Jeez.
insurance brand of hospital.
Yeah, so
Like,
this is an American
so I
specific
guess
thing.
like the complete sort of decentralization of healthcare, or like, privatization of healthcare there, means that like maybe it's a little bit more like, because if there's no standardized way of like showing diagnosis or anything like that, then like maybe it's a little bit weirder in that sense. I don't know.
Like I know in Canada we have certain labor laws for like women's standards and stuff like this, so you still get like people at the store who the store has to appoint as like health reps, and they even get to take time off to go do women's training and stuff like this to make sure that all the books are up to date and certified and like all that stuff. Like because especially at like Canadian Tire, where we're dealing with things like paint and car shit, the various oils and
Yeah.
stuff you apply to cars, and so you had to have someone there who has training on that on site all the time, kind of thing. Like we would all get basic WMIS training, which is like workplace hazardous materials. Uh, but you always had to have someone on staff who was like somewhat certified at like a level beyond just what the company gives you in a training course. The Sunday shift
Yeah,
was also fun.
amazingly, my food workplace that never passed its safety inspection or its health inspection didn't really give a shit about if we were mixing chemicals or whatever. Um, I remember one time, because like my section was like partially Tim Hortons and partially like the Aramark cafeteria. Also, Aramark is like a nasty corporation. They primarily do prison cafeterias. But I remember like the Tim Hortons rep came by, and just finding out about like how often, it's like, oh, the ice cap machine is supposed to be taken down once a week and fully cleaned inside and out. It's like, oh, yeah, we do that once a year. Like,
Good lord,
who knows what's been growing in there?
that is horrifying.
Just, yeah. And end of the night, like, we only had two sinks, so if one of them's busy doing dishes, which we did by hand, um, again, not super good for food stuff.
Possible
The other one
porpoise.
was just getting whatever cleaning chemicals we had dumped into it. So if it
Possible.
had a reaction, it had a reaction.
Just gonna say possible porpoise. I am glad that you're alive. Okay. You seem to have a hell of a time at the occupations that you've had. Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I didn't have to like mix any shit. The worst that we had was like, yeah, the paints. I once got super mad at my employer because we were not disposing of the paint appropriately, and I threatened to call the government. I can't remember what it was like because I think it would have been Wemyss because they were like just throwing out the like colorants, which were like they're more like distilled like an oil based thing, and you can't just throw those in the garbage. They have to be recycled appropriately. It's fucking toxic, and they were just tossing it in the garbage. Does anyone know what detasseling is? No. It's something that's in the Midwest, basically the only case of legal child labor I'm aware of, besides whatever family shops exist. So what did they do? What is the detassel? I'll keep reading while I wait for your response. The Sunday shift is always too much for people. It's a skeleton crew, again, and the program has simply assumed there's a full staff. Aren't you thankful you scored the overnight shift? I think about the best way to die in a fulfillment center, nestled in some obscure corner where it'll take a week for somebody to find me. Or should I throw myself at one of those big sortation racks? Use my last bit of strength to bury myself under a mound of toys and video games and the occasional toaster. When I start falling, I'm taking you all down with me. No, no, fuck it. Fuck it. I do I do find the name fulfillment center is quite horrifying. That just the name itself is horrifying. So detasselment or detasseling is agriculture related. Detasseling corn is removing the immature pollen producing bodies from the tops of corn. Okay? So kids can do that? Weird. There's probably
Yeah.
incidents of
Um,
suicide too, cars, I imagine.
on child labor news also, BC just raised, they were the last province in Canada to do it. They just raised their minimum employment age from 12 to 16. So before, like, last
Oh,
week, you could be a 12 or 13-year-old working like an actual job.
Lord. An overwhelmingly hostile form of organization, always pursuing the offensive. The supervisors keep insinuating that they can automate us out of our jobs. They keep lying about how bad it used to be, but nothing's changed. They are watching our footsteps and tracking our subtle movements. I will say, please, automate us out of our jobs so we have more free time to destroy the system. Amazon puts out a press release. Their facial identification algorithm has successfully identified fear. It's afraid. Another lie, but a useful one. Are they training it on us? We are subsidizing state security services all over the planet. I don't doubt it. That's kind of horrifying, actually.
Yeah.
Amazon is cloud based services. Amazon is the CIA and the Department of Defense and ICE. In Germany, they are deploying the subtly named Rudolf Hess private security company to suppress the organizing efforts of migrant workers at their facilities. I'm guessing Rudolf Hess is a Nazi person? The name
Um,
sounds very familiar.
yeah.
In Southeast Asia and Taiwan, they are fraying the nerves of contracted production workers for a fraction of our pay, which the company would like to convince you was a reward for increased productivity. Everyone is a customer. Are you Googling
He
Rudolf
was,
Hess?
yeah, he was deputy Führer of the Nazi Party.
What? That is weird.
Yeah.
I almost, so have you checked?
Denazification worked.
Can you check if Rudolf Hess private security company is a real thing? Not that I want to shut down on this article. That just sounds a little too on the nose. That is a little too
Yeah.
on the nose.
Um, I'm gonna see if it's in his like see also or something. Death and aftermath. What the fuck? Um,
Alberta's Jason Kenney just lowered the working age to 13 years.
fuck.
Why? They should if you can work at 13, you should be able to vote at 13. That's what I got to say to that. And one like good thing I can say about the NDP, we consistently vote at conventions and conferences that we support the voting age of younger people. I think at provincial council, or not council, the last provincial convention, we voted to allow 14-year-olds to vote for NDP stuff internally to the party, but also with the policy of lowering the voting age generally to 14 years of age. But still, I don't think
Um,
children should work regardless. I'm just saying, by their logic, if they can fucking work, they can fucking vote and do other stuff.
okay. So Amazon since this article, I guess, and since like a documentary aired in Germany about it, it was
Stop teasing.
the security company was titled like had an acronym name that spelled HESS. So it wasn't like directly
Okay.
called Rudolf Hess, but it was a neo-Nazi like linked security company with the name of a prominent Nazi.
Yes. Yes. No, that's still not good, but a little less.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it does say subtly named, but then says Rudolph Hess. So maybe, yeah, that's it's still.
Mhm.
A recent report has exposed the dangerous conditions of Amazon's last mile delivery system. I do well to reproduce at length the description of a fatality laid out in this article for which the author holds the company responsible. Okay, so just a warning because we're going to get a death story. Valdemar Gray was delivering packages for Amazon at the height of the pre-Christmas rush when his 3-ton van barreled into an 84-year-old grandmother, crushing her diaphragm, several ribs, and fracturing her skull. "Oh my God," screamed Gray as he leaped out of his van. It was a bright, clear afternoon on December 22nd, 2016, and the 29-year-old had been at the wheel of the white Nissan since early that morning, racing to drop Amazon packages on doorsteps throughout Chicago. He stood in anguish next to Telsfora Escamilla as she lay dying, her blood pooling on the pavement just 3 blocks from her home. After the police arrived, Gray submitted to drug and alcohol tests, which came up clean. He would later be charged with reckless homicide. That seems weird. Why would they charge? I mean, I guess because he's directly responsible for the hitting, but I mean, the speeding is probably the reckless part of it. The pressure is the regime. Thousands of workers have consented to piss and shit in adult diapers. Jesus Christ. Slog through 8-hour, 10-hour shifts in deadly heat and humidity, always learning the masochistic thrill of the burning pain and all the delirium of exhaustion, because the system has quietly maneuvered them into the position of acquiescence and normalization. When your car meets another in a head on collision going 60 or 70 miles per hour, the spray of shattered glass will cover your face. The twisted metal will stick out at all angles, like a phalanx, and penetrate your torso and groin at several points. You will be crumpled over the sagging airbags. Your body is contorted in ways that even shock the first responders. Not as if your grieving family or the other one can sue the car companies. Nothing was technically wrong with either car, or get rid of the highways just because they had to keep the casket closed for your funeral. Plausible deniability, consent, contractual relationships, company policy, and comforting little delusions. The system is pressure. Pick up those rates, folks. What we've been talking about? Quality, people. It's quality. Yeah. I mean, you're responding to someone else, but Jesus fucking Christ is right. Healed a beast. About 10 years ago, there was an
Yeah.
incident in
Also,
Iowa of
yeah.
girls on a detassellating crew getting electrocuted and killed by a malfunctioning irrigation pivot. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a, a family friend of mine died on a job site. Uh, I don't even know. I think they settled with the family or not. I don't know how far it went, but he basically, I don't know. It's hard to tell whether it was a lack of safety regulations or him doing something he shouldn't have done. But he basically fell into a rock crusher. It's
Oh my
probably not the
God.
best way to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
And
sorry, go on.
oh, go.
Well, we had like at so I used to be a part of the labor council, and we had an organization. I wish I could remember their name, but they go around advocating for regulations about job safety and stuff like that because often companies that where there's fatalities are often the ones that are very negligent and there will be future fatalities, and so they go around training unions to work with them to help, I guess, get the government going on regulations to protect people from these companies. And the one of the women who works with the local version of this in London, Ontario, She worked in my philosophy department as one of the like uh, receptionists. I guess would be the best way to put it. And her son died setting up uh, tents for like outdoor like venues and stuff like that locally. Like the big huge
Hmm.
canopy tents, and got struck by the storm was coming. They didn't tell their workers to go in, and lightning struck the poles while they were erecting the tents, and he died. Was
God.
18. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I don't remember if we read it, but further up, Empress Octavia was talking more about detasseling and said that small companies employ kids to go out to fields in Nebraska and I'm assuming surrounding states. And we walked through fields in late summer from about 5 a.m. to anywhere between 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Jesus.
Yeah. And the corn was like red tinted from all the pesticides. Oh my God.
Labor laws. Unions are important, folks.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I think we are nearing the end of this. There is a reaper whose name is Death. He sets his knife to the wetter. Now it cuts better. Not sure what wetter means.
Sure. Um, to the whetstone,
Whetstone? Like that's
to
yeah,
the thing
okay,
that
that's what I
sharpens
was
it.
thinking, but I've never heard wetter
Yeah. No.
in which we are presented with the crisis of a proletariat that has been bought off with video games and the freedom to jerk off to whatever they want, whenever they want. We're pro masturbation here, though. We're not in the no fat movement, okay? So feel free to jerk off whenever you want, with consent if anyone's around, and but don't let it distract from you from the proletariat revolution, okay? Responsible fapping, I guess.
Sure.
Good night, possible porpoise. Thanks for hanging around. We the best, DJ Khaled calls out from over the facility speakers. We make the best music. It's starting all over again for the fourth time in my shift, and I've only worked 5 whole hours of it. I've developed a notable emotional and physical response to this song. At first, oh, that is true. The repeat fucking songs while working. When I was at Canadian Tire, the
Yeah.
one song that would come on, actually, the only song that I remember coming on that I enjoyed was shit. Hello by Lionel Richie. Hello, is it me you're looking for? I can see it in your eyes. And that song would come on and I would fucking love it. And then I remember like people would like call for me like Jody like over the headset and I'd be like, "Hello, is it me you're looking for?"
You still do that.
I love it. I love it.
You do that, like, I swear, 2/3 of the time that, like, we log on to Discord together.
Honestly, it
Like,
was
if we
because
enter into a voice chat, you say, hello. Like,
you know what? It's because like when I worked at Canadian Tire, they used to have like it wasn't even a radio station. They would just play like a set of songs that would repeat, right? So you would have that song play every single shift at least like 2 or 3 times. And so it's in my brain. At first call, my right eye twitches slightly and I will involuntarily flex my knuckles. Occasionally, I will ball one of my hands into a fist. I feel a combination of acute disgust, defeat, and fury. Oh, so does Simone. Oh, all right. No need to yell.
meow.
Look, do you want to say hi to the camera? Okay. Oh, look at that. Oh, you don't know what this inanimate object is in front of you, but it is in fact a camera. Okay.
Hi, Simone.
Oh, she just wants to grind my face for a bit. I will keep reading. The whole track reminds me of this corporate lobby I was in once. I remember I was stuck in Pittsburgh trying to take shelter from the blizzard outside, and I stepped through these revolving doors. Boxy chandeliers hung over a 2-story reception area that also functioned as a mini mall. Little shops were set up on a couple sides facing the reception desk, flanking a corridor leading to the elevators. An escalator went up to a Starbucks on the other side. A set of windows revealed a somewhat appealing view of the street below. Just about everything was covered in this marble facade. I'll always recall the scent of perfume and cologne and coffee. Oh, 1 second. Her nails are stuck in my shirt here. Oh. And all purpose cleaner wafting all around me, clashing with my own stench of mildew. I've never had a stench of mildew. That's kind of gross. Cold sweat and dirty clothes. I take another package off the conveyor belt and shove it into the stowing rack. I've never described anyone of smelling like mildew. That's gotta be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh. Yes, my kitty is named Simone de Beauvoir after the French existential feminist philosopher. So, as you do, as you do. You also get paid really good money. I'm talking like 15 plus an hour for about 3 to 4 weeks of full-time hours. Is that for
That
the
is
jobs?
very good. That's a detasseling.
Yeah, Jesus.
Imagine being like a 13-year-old
Making
getting
15
15 an
plus. Yeah.
hour. Yeah.
My first job ever was $6.30 an hour at Canadian Tire. And that would have been the early 2000s, I think. Early 2000s. The Fourth
Yeah.
Reich is the dictatorship of the Silicon Valley capitalist, who is part technocrat and part New Age mystic. His Volksgenosse Genos is the professional consumer. A lot of the mostly young, mostly white workers have already bought into his delusion of a sharing economy. They almost never think about work, only gigs and side hustles. They think they're entrepreneurs, but the fact that the capitalists have gotten them to think a corporation like Amazon is doing them a favor by offering them regular employment betrays their real status. They're useful idiots. Sounds about right. The good workers, they pull the highest rates on any task. They collaborate with the supervisors, and they're always the first to land a steady contract as a blue badge. I'm guessing that's some sort of status symbol within the company.
Yeah, I
What's
guess.
what strange force also compels them to tell us that the break's over, get back to work? I don't know. I only know I absolutely despise them for it. I can honestly say, not a one. When I worked at Loblaws, nobody told you the break was done to get back to work because everyone just took
Yeah.
their sweet ass fucking time.
I remember they tried to get us to start clocking out for our breaks so that they could like time them and make sure
Breaks.
that we
Jeez.
weren't over like we were still getting paid for them. They were paid breaks, but it was like they were trying to make sure that we weren't going over our allotted time or anything, and it was just like the most fucking annoying thing ever.
We had to break from $3 an hour from your first job, Hildebeest. Yeah, I'm 35. I don't know. Like, were you? Maybe it was a different country. Are you Canadian or American? uh, but yeah, we only had to clock out of Canadian Tire on our lunch break, which I think you were only guaranteed like 30 minutes for lunch. But you were given like 15-minute breaks for certain things that you didn't have to clock out of, like if you not worked enough to get lunchtime or whatever. And
Yeah.
often we would just dick around and not care. You don't have to clock out. But the thing is, even with clocking in for lunch, often what would happen is people would come down, clock back in, and go back up and finish eating.
Hell yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I think it was for the lunch break that they were trying to get us to like clock out for. Um, but yeah, the nice part about that job too was because it was at a cafeteria, we got like can't remember how much of a like daily budget on like a food card for the cafeteria to just like get a free meal for lunch or dinner or like whatever, depending on what shift you're working. And that was like so nice, especially as a student, like to get, it was like, might have been like 25 bucks a day or something. Like it was, maybe it was 15. I don't remember, but it was enough to get like a decent meal and like a snack or like a dessert or something as well. And that was just so amazing as a like, 17-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
Like free large portions of food. Like,
The one nice thing about working at Loveless is I think they had like a cafeteria because like I mean we're a food shipment place, so tons of food available, right? And and
yeah.
it would be like super cheap. So it was like I remember it was like $7 for like a plate of like I was a meat eater back then, so you would have sausage, bacon, eggs, hash browns, just like this huge fucking plate for your lunch break for like $7, which was I remember loving it at the time. But he ends his paragraph by saying, "Someday they'll turn into supervisors and likely transfer out, eagerly lapping up whatever shit the company throws them." I'm now gonna read Empress's thing here. Tell you what it
Yeah.
was. Tell you what, it was a very entertaining first job for me because the company I worked for was ran by a family and there was a lot of family drama I got to witness. And the majority of my crew has a clean 50-50 split between ghetto city kids and nerdy gamer kids. Exceedingly entertaining how many kids from all walks of life learn to get along amongst each other when they might not otherwise. I'm not going to downplay the job anymore, though. Walking back and forth in cornfields for 6+ hours fucking sucked. Yeah, no doubt. Corn leaves are just giant blades of grass. Oh, yeah, 100%. And the face protection was not enough to make your face and neck itch. And don't get me started on the dew, leaving you soaked and cold until the sun rose. And then you probably bake once the sun did rise. Yep.
Yeah. Plus, like, spending all day in giant pesticide fields as well. Probably not wonderful for long-term health.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the heat. Oh my God.
Heat suck. The majority of the workers have actually embraced the level of social atomization that's engineered into the system. The flat wage increase to $15 an hour was employed as a provisional deterrent against worker organization, but the primacy of random assignments on shift and the encouragement to leave the facility during all your breaks practically ensures it. On break, almost everyone will scatter to their cars and spend all their time alone. The minority will occupy the break room. There might be a few breakaway groups of 2 or 3 people making small talk, but this is really minimal and insufficient. The greatest divides between workers are produced by this automation rather than hierarchy or the division of labor. No one is going to work at the same place for long, and there's less incentive overall to maintain your baseline sanity on shift by talking to other people when most can satisfy this by looking at their phones. Yeah, I wonder how much of that is the case now. I remember when I worked at Loblaws, uh, smartphones were just starting to become a thing. So I remember chatting with people on break, but a lot of people did go out to their cars, mostly to do drugs though.
Yeah.
All the migrant workers from Africa and the Middle East seem to have the right idea. They all clock in and clock out together, rarely leave each other's sides when they're on break, and give each other rides home. They're bound by a common language, culture, and to a very immediate degree of a common history. The migrant workers work only the hours they're scheduled for. When the supervisor demands another hour, they pretend not to understand him and leave side by side. Yes.
That's so good.
Yes. Solidarity with these people right here. There's a Somali worker who always comes in with a bomber jacket, no matter how hot it is. One day I indicated to him that I thought it was cool, to which he smiled bashfully and nodded. This was the closest I've ever felt to another human being while working at Amazon. Dear Lord. All shift, I
Yeah.
tried to focus on that bomber jacket, trying to fantasize about buying one before this fantasy eroded, hour by hour, into a dull rage. We are, all of us, machines. One of the I remember there was one dude who got fired from I don't know if they even got fired. They just, for whatever reason, something happened. They snapped or something, started to not work, and took a case of green peppers and a thing of whipped cream and was filling up peppers with whipped cream and then hitting them like a baseball with a piece of wood from a pallet and was just driving around.
What?
Driving around hitting green peppers full of whipped cream. And I remember that. The other one was like, you would have some pranks that people would do, like whip bags of flour at people so they would just be covered in flour all day. But that dude with the green peppers, I don't know what the hell was going on. But like that was something else.
It's so good. Oh my god.
Every day, more and more, I'm tapping into my innermost slave morality. I'm leaning into it and taking it to new heights. I'd like to imagine a world in which everyone has on their minds more pay, less work. No more than that. Refuse to work. Kill your supervisor to reclaim your humanity. Refuse the system, the stratification, and the machinification. Destroy this whole cybernetic organism that weighs us down like a fucking tumor hanging off our sides. And deal with all the fucking programmers who coded that shit. No use trying to swat it out of their hands and take it for ourselves. This is a war of annihilation. No, we're against this. AI liberation today. Save the robots.
No, death to the AI, freedom to the, self-checkout workers.
Okay. It's not that I want to negotiate any better terms with the management, the company, or the customer. I want them all to suffer. I don't want to facilitate the flow of thousands of Keurig cups to people with more money than they can spend. I want them to fucking choke on it and leave me alone. We're boiling alive and thanking them for it. I want workers to stop pissing and shitting and killing themselves for a mass of parasites who produce nothing and consume everything. Dignity through the conquest of power. I want all the workers to spend more time with each other, conspiring against the company, breaking the web of surveillance, of ideology, and looting and smashing everything they can get their hands on. I want them to start thinking about work, talking about work, and how it makes them feel. Well, there you go. We just did that. Elastico Gomez is a high school dropout and former anarchist. He works and drinks. Don't we all? He is currently residing in a secure location somewhere in the Midwest. No doubt. So this is a bit of an experiment. I hope you enjoyed. We had a lot of people show up. I think we got our regular numbers and stuff. Let us know if this is something you're interested in. If you like what we did today or any feedback. And I think we're going to do something like this every Monday. I don't know. It's probably not going to be the same topic every Monday. There's only so much we can talk about work necessarily. But something fun and vaguely leftist rather than constantly reacting to the right-wing people like we do on Wednesdays and Fridays. So,
yeah.
Let us know. Let us know if you enjoyed this.
Something that feels a little bit more like creating rather than just shitting on the right wing.
Yeah. This wasn't fun. It's depressing. Listen.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.